Hi everyone, I'm Vinod and welcome to Career Bolt. So I'm adjunct faculty at IIT Kerala and today I'm going to touch on something very different, which is about the massive layoffs happening in the tech sector. A lot of companies like Amazon, Salesforce, which are beginning to lay off employees this new year. And there are questions, especially with people who are already in visas and settled in the US, asking what options are open to me when I get laid off from a job and if I'm on H1B visa. So let's delve into it. I think there is probably around 7 to 8 options available to people as they transition from the earlier job to a new job. So first thing first, when you are an H1B visa, the visa is valid for 6 years. And pretty much you got to apply for some sort of green card by the time your 6 year gets over if you want to continue to be in the US. So the H1B visa gives you the flexibility to change jobs and move to another company offering a H1B. So the best option for you is use that opportunity to try for another job, and you have to get a job within 60 days. So if you don't get a job within 60 days, you have to leave the US and come back to your home country or whichever country your company is sending you to. So there's a 60-day grace period by the time you get fired or you leave your earlier company to finding a new job. The tricky thing is that most jobs in the US, the entire job search process actually takes a lot of time. By the time you apply and get noticed, it takes at least a month. By the time you begin to interview with companies, the interview process itself, there are multiple rounds, which takes you more than a month. So it takes you approximately 3 months for you to find a good job. So I would say that as soon as your job is impacted, begin the job search process ASAP without wasting a single day. So do not waste time in thinking about the past, ruminating, being depressed. That's not the way. Go forward, begin to apply for jobs, get referrals from friends you know working in other companies, and apply to jobs through referrals. Do not, by any stretch, think that you can just go to the company portal and apply and expect to be called for interview. It just doesn't happen. So do use the option of getting referrals when you search for a job. So that's it's probably the best option for you. Find a new job. Assuming that you don't think that you can get a job within 2 months, what are the other options open? So let's maybe then move to the second option. If by chance you have a spouse in the US and he or she is on H1B visa, you're eligible for something called a dependent H1B visa, a spousal H1B visa. So that gives you the flexibility to tag along with your spouse and apply for H1B visa. And it's pretty easy to get. So that really is the second option in terms of if your spouse has H1B visa, then life becomes much easier. Point number three is that if this doesn't work, you could apply for a student visa and keep yourself in the US. So you can apply, for example, if you're an undergrad degree or master's degree in a tech sector, you can apply for MBA program. That's one way to be in the US. There are also some schools which offer something called a Day One CPT program, which basically means that you enroll in a university. And while you're taking your courses, you can begin to work because every university offers something called a CPT, curriculum practical training, which gives you the flexibility to work in the US while you're doing your education. So a lot of people, when they don't get their H1Bs, they apply to company like Harrisburg University of Science and Technologies, a place where I've seen a couple of my friends apply. So they apply to this place and you quickly get a CPT within a couple of days of you joining the course. And using the CPT, you can continue to work for your employer. And that's the advantage. So again, a lot of students are doing it. So that can be one way for you to continue to work with the employer. So the F1 student visa is clearly one of the options. So point number 4 is that you could move to something called a B2 visitor visa. So the B2 visitor visa is basically a way for you to come from foreign countries to the US. And you can move from being on H1B visa to applying for a B2 visa. And you can change the status back to H1B if you get a job in the meantime. The only tricky thing about a B2 visa is that you have to apply well in advance. So again, don't waste too much time. Remember, all this feedback I'm giving you is not legal advice. So the first thing you have to do when something happens to your job is that talk to a legal advisor, talk to immigration expert, and they'll give you great feedback. And I'm just giving you an overall picture by saying that the B2 visitor visa is also an option, which is open to people, but they have to apply for it well in advance. The fifth option, which is probably not easy for most people on H1B visa, is that you can apply for something called a O1 visa. A O1 visa is something where you pay money. It's called a millionaire visa, where you pay $1 million to the US and basically set up a company in the US which can provide jobs. So if you can provide jobs, you end up getting a separate category of visa which helps you be in the US. So if it is like $1 million in the populated regions in the US, and it's around $500,000 if it's a less populated region, hinterland in the US. So you can, if you already have some money with you, if you have some investments, if you're a rich person, you can use this option of getting EB5 visa to be in the US. Most importantly, when you're figuring all this out, do not travel anywhere. Don't go abroad, because once your visa is under a cloud, if you travel abroad, you'll find it very, very difficult to come back to the US. So do not do that. Try the maximum not to do any sort of travel while you sort your visa issues out. And if something happens, try to solve it from the US. Don't get out. It makes it almost impossible to come back unless your visa issue has been sorted out. The final option, which is probably not a bad option, is the option to come back to India or any other foreign country you're from and spend time in your home country and then apply to a H1B much later, as and when the market picks up. Right now, the tech industry is in the dumps. There's a lot of macroeconomic uncertainty right now, and it's nothing linked to the tech sector. What's really happening is that there are a lot of uncertainty among governments, among the reserve banks. It's about the inflation rates. It's about the currency valuations, what the pegging rate of the dollar versus a local currency. And these are governmental problems. And these macroeconomic problems will come down over time. There's issues around semiconductor chip shortage and all that. So that's all adding to this threat of a recession. And these problems will get resolved over time. Give it maybe a year or so, and things will come back to normal. And the boom will begin later. The tech industry by itself is doing very well. There's no problem with it. There's no intrinsic issues with the way they're trying to solve the problems of the world. They're doing very well. But again, the macroeconomic uncertainty is upsetting a lot of the calculations of companies. They're deciding to scale back. So assume that things do come back, and the local economies in other countries like China, India, they're booming like crazy. So there are going to be a lot of great jobs in the future. And if you're a person who's willing to commit to a different country, work in your home country for some time, maybe coming back to your home country is a really good option. The only tricky thing is that if you probably have mortgages, and if you are already paying for these mortgages and you have expensive purchases in the US, then it's very difficult to pay for it when you are in a different country, because the dollar is pretty much the numero uno currency. It's the top currency. And in terms of currency exchange rates, if you're from a different country, convert your local currency to dollars, you get a pretty bad bargain. So think about it. Coming to home country may not be bad. You can always come back to the US as and when things pick up. But again, that's probably not feasible for other folks. So you may want to consider looking at all the other options I've listed here. Okay, folks, let me know in the comments below if you have other thoughts or questions. I love talking to you. And if you see some value from these conversations, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel so that you can get more of these videos as and when I create them. Cheers, folks. Have a great day. Bye-bye.